些受人喜欢，有些受人厌恶。怎么当一个好的领导者？接下来Tim要教大家如何成为一个充满活力的领导者。那让我们热烈欢迎全球社群领袖 Mr. Future of Work Tim。
Thank you so much, my friend, Eisen. So earlier today, I was talking to you all a little bit about, how to thrive in the future of work. And some of the things I mentioned was the need to embrace complexity, the need to be able to build community. And what I really want to dive deep on in this session is to really give you all the layout and what I believe is the best model for leading in the future of work. When I think about the future of work and I think about all of the dynamic change that is happening with new technology, augmented reality, virtual reality, right? New generations in the workspace, right? I believe the best type of leader is the one that is dynamic. The best type of leader is the one that embraces change and complexity like it's normal, right? The most common thing you often hear when things change is that people hate change, right? If something happens at work, a new process, or a new environment that you have to move into, everyone hates it. Everyone stands up and is like, no, why do we have to move? Let's keep things the same. And the thing about this is, change is now the only constant. With so much happening in the world, from augmented reality to virtual reality, to the new behaviors that are in the workplace, we all have to be accustomed to change. We all have to be willing to learn new things. But more importantly, we have to become better leaders. And my philosophy on leadership isn't that you have to have a position title in order to lead. How many of you all agree with that? Y'all agree? You do not need a position title to lead. I believe the best leaders have no position title. Right? The best leaders are people who take initiative. They're people who are compassionate. They're people who are empathetic. And more importantly, they're people who see opportunity and are able to inspire others. I don't think you need a position title to do that. Do you think so? No, right? You don't. You don't need a position title to do that. You just need to have the heart. But more importantly, you have to embrace, I believe, this concept that I consider dynamic leadership. Dynamic leadership. And in order to be a dynamic leader, I believe there's 7 principles to it. And earlier today, I talked about Jack Ma. And I shared a little bit about his story from growing up as a poor young man in China to now being worth $40 billion. You want to know how he got there? He didn't get there by settling. He didn't get there. He didn't even know how to code when he built Alibaba. But he understood that if he was going to be able to build one of the world's now best companies, he had to have purpose. He had to be bold. He had to know how to bring people together. When he was initially raising money to fund Alibaba, he went to Silicon Valley. He talked to all of the venture capitalists. Everyone here has heard of Silicon Valley, right? Right, that's where all of the technology is. He pitched them. He would say, hey, I have this really cool idea. I believe that we need to create an e-commerce site for China, but it's not only going to be for China. It's going to be for in the entire world. It's going to be international. People will be able to buy shirts, goods, and we'll make sure we ship it directly to their homes. Every VC he talked to initially said, I don't know about that. That doesn't make sense. No one's going to buy that. We don't believe you. That's a dumb idea. All he was faced with was negativity. But Jack didn't stop there. He said, okay, I understand. You don't want to invest? Fine. I'll find other investors. And he did. But what he really did was he showed grit throughout the entire process. He eventually talked to investors who offered him millions, and he was able to raise about $5 million to, start up the company. And then from there, he goes to his apartment, and with a team of 7, they're in his apartment, and they built the initial version of Alibaba. What started as an open source project because the internet was so new at the time, now is the world's largest company and one of the most successful companies in the world. But he didn't get there by being stagnant. He realized that there was an opportunity at the time because the internet was so new and there was no e-commerce site that could support the world the way Alibaba could. And he said, you know, I have this idea and I have the initiative. I believe I'm the type of leader that can build this team that brings people together, but really exemplify these habits. I believe Jack Ma is one of those dynamic leaders we need to pay attention to. So when I think about the 7 habits of dynamic leadership, I think it starts with purpose, adaptability, authenticity, being bold, taking initiative, understanding how can you create clarity when there's complexity, how can you lead with compassion with others, and I think the last, the most important one, leading with community, bringing people together as you lead. So these are, in my opinion, the 7 habits of dynamic leadership. And I think it's essential that you ingrain these habits within you. Because I believe in the time of exponential change, and we're moving towards a world where nothing is going to be consistent. You're going to have to dynamically change in the workplace, beyond the workplace, and in your life. You have to be able to embrace the different contexts that you'll be in. There will be times in your life where you'll have to be a dynamic leader. There will be times in your life that you'll have to be a community-oriented leader. There will be times in your life where you have to be adaptive. But you have to be able to have the foresight and the contextual awareness to understand when you have to use these habits. When I first started my company, Guide is a life skills training app for high school students to learn essential life skills from their favorite content creators. So we imagine entrepreneurs, people who love to teach life skills, can teach courses, really bite-sized micro courses on our platform, teaching students how to get into entrepreneurship, how to start their careers. When I first had the idea, it actually wasn't my idea. My co-founder, who I met in Seattle when I was working with one of the top tech companies in the world, Microsoft, I met him at a Starbucks, and he told me, hey man, I think we should build this social learning app for high school students. I'm really passionate about it, and because I saw your profile on LinkedIn, and one of his friends had referred him to me, he said, you know, I think you and I, because we both love mentorship, I think we should start this company together. And at first, when he told me about this idea, I was like, a social learning app? What? Like, why? You know, what problem are we trying to solve? He didn't really understand what he wanted to build. But I listened to him. And more importantly, I realized that he was so passionate about social learning. He was so passionate about making sure high school students were able to have the life skills in order to be successful in their careers. So I listened to him. I was empathetic. I was compassionate to his idea. Lo and behold, we eventually met our other co-founder, whose name is Mike, a few months later. And when we were talking to Mike, we were telling him, hey, you know, I met Taban in Seattle. Me and Taban have been working on this idea for the last few months, and we think we want to build a product for high school students, but we don't know exactly what problem to solve. At that time, we had no idea what problem we wanted to solve. So when we were talking to Mike, Mike says this, you know what? Because Mike had been a teacher for the last 10 years in education, so he really understood the needs of high school students, right? He was in these schools, he was talking to these students, he was talking to their parents. He knew everything about high school students. I didn't know a lot, right? Because I was, you know, working at Microsoft and trying to learn about AI at the time, right? And then Taban didn't know anything because he was just an engineer. And he was really good at code, but he was a smart engineer. He was an empathetic engineer, but he wasn't close to high school students. He wasn't close to the customers that we wanted to support. So we were talking to Mike, and Mike says, you know what? I think this is the problem I think you all need to solve. I think you all need to focus on life skills education. And we were like, life skills education? He was like, yes, because in high schools right now, Students are not learning life skills. Students aren't learning how to communicate. They're not learning the importance of financial literacy, taking care of their money. They're not learning about how to manage their careers. So when Mike told us that, we both looked at each other, and this was through Zoom, by the way. We were video conferencing. We look at each other, and we're like, that's it. That's the problem we're going to solve. We're going to solve the problem of equipping students with the effective life skills so they can have a successful career, because there's a huge need for that. And that's the reason why we're building our product. And one thing I love about my co-founders is the fact that we believe if we are going to be successful as leaders and in our company, we need to be able to adopt these habits. We need to be able to adopt the habits of dynamic leadership, because no matter what context and no matter what we go through as a team, we're going to be faced with adversity. But when you're faced with adversity, if you're dynamic and you're able to embrace purpose when you need to, you're able to embrace being bold when you need to, you'll thrive. You'll be successful. So I have an exercise for you all. So every one of you, bring out your sheet and paper, your sheet, paper, and pen. If you have a notebook. And on your notebook, I want you, each of you, so since you all are already sitting in rows of 3, this is great, and some 2, this is perfect. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2. This is good, that's fine. So with the people that you're sitting with, on your notebook, for about 2 to 3 minutes, think about it. Ask yourself, who is a leader that you admire that exemplifies one of the habits that I showed you? So who is a leader that you admire that exemplifies one of the habits that I showed you earlier? Each of you. So take some time, write that down, write his or her name down, and write why. So write down one leader that you admire. They can be a musician, an artist, a business leader. Write down their name and write down why you admire them.
就写出一个领导者，然后不管是在音乐方面或者是各方面都可以，然后写出原因。
Excuse me, do you have to characterize them into the 7 habits?
No, you don't. You don't. They just have to exemplify one, not all of them. Right. Yeah, if you have one in mind that exemplifies one, that's good. Sweet, sweet, sweet. Now, if you've written them down, now amongst each other, side to side, I know some of you are sitting 2 to a table or 3 to a table, discuss them. Discuss who these leaders are. Share with your friend, your partner, that's sitting right next to you. Tell them why.
现在就讨论一下你们刚刚所写的东西。
So I'll give you 2 minutes to do that. I see a lot of you all talking. This is good. This is good. So I'm going to give you all 1 more minute, and I'm going to ask for a few volunteers to share who their leaders are. Awesome. So is everyone ready? Everyone good? Yeah? Oh, still talking? One more minute? Okay, good, good, good. Awesome, awesome. Good. Okay, so, hey everyone. Hey everyone. Good job. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, time on. Time over. Time over. Done. Good. Also, so it seems as if you all had leaders that you all are really passionate about. So no one should have a problem volunteering. So show of hands if you want to talk about a leader that you picked. Raise your hand. If not, I'm just going to pick on you. Jimmy, who's the leader that you picked?
Actually, I picked my friend.
Okay.
I have a friend who is, he used to be a Yahoo evangelist.
Okay.
And I was looking at all the traits. He fit a lot of the traits.
So okay.
He built different community. So he built, after I met him, he built a community in Sydney for people of developers.
Wow.
To Sydney, and we discussed a lot of topics about life, family, all issues. He recently built this podcast, and he's been thinking about, I want to do something meaningful, like a purpose.
Yeah.
We've been talking about like something that he's really passionate about. He really likes people, and he knows that we know a lot about Sydney. We should let people know about Sydney. So he recently did this podcast. But back in his mind, he just wants to build something meaningful, and he wants to do his own business so he can have impact. And the key thing is that he really cares about people. That's why his podcast is actually interviewing different people in Sydney, in the developer world. So how in family, in terms of new youngsters, everybody is really willing to participate because he really cares about people. He really does it because he wants to grow himself and he wants to grow everybody together. So as a friend, he's always very true to what he wants, what he thinks, and are able to take feedbacks or ask questions and reiterate. So as I've been reading these traits, my friend, mine.
What's his name?
His name is called Joseph.
Joseph. Joseph's a dynamic leader, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. That's a great example. And dynamic leaders are usually always creating meaning, right? They're being transparent. They're inclusive, bringing people together. And those are awesome traits. So I love that, Jimmy. Thank you, my friend. Well, you're next. So who is the leader that you picked and why?
The leader I picked is Zhang Zhongmo.
Okay.
I like the saying he has said before. It's optimize is an advantage of someone. So you just have to be optimized to do everything.
I love that. So how did you find out about him?
I found this sentence on the newspaper.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was an interview.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's good. Anyone else? Huh?
I picked Li An, the film director, which is all familiar by Taiwanese.
Okay.
The reason I picked him is because the thing on my table is authenticity, and I think Li An is a model of authenticity. He's very willing to share his thoughts, and I can see that in his works totally.
So that inspires you?
Yeah, that inspires me because typical leader doesn't like him. I would say, like the typical leaders, we would imagine someone like very bold, very aggressive, sometimes a bit aggressive.
Yeah.
Somehow he's not. He's very modest and he's very willing to share with others. So yeah.
I love that. I love that. Inclusive, open, not aggressive. Who else? Who else has leaders that they want to share? Come on. Okay, we're going over here.
I was about to raise my hand.
Got you.
I actually have like two very diverse leaders that I want to talk about. The first one is Astral Teller. I'm not sure if anyone knows. He's the director of X, formerly known as Google X. I actually had the privilege of meeting him in person while he was on a roller skate in his office. So he's definitely one of those leaders that live by his words and kind of lead by example. And you can definitely feel like the energy and vibe because Google X is all about like innovation and like breakthroughs. So you can definitely feel that kind of ideology that's actually like he's living in that by himself. And the other leader that I was thinking about, this is probably harder for a Taiwanese audience, is an American rapper. It's called Lil Dicky.
I know Lil Dicky.
I'm sorry. Okay, so for everyone else, Lil Dicky is like a kind of like a comedian rapper in the U.S. He made like some like really weird like viral songs like raps before.
So why Lil Dicky?
But the reason why I mentioned it is because also this lady here mentioned that her kind of like her role model leader is Leonardo DiCaprio.
Wow.
And I just kind of just clicked in my mind. It's like, hey, like Lil Dicky recently just came out with like a music video about Earth, and where Leonardo DiCaprio had a cameo in it because the video was about climate change. So I think like Lil Dicky's like a very kind of like a interesting leader because he could have just kind of like lived the rapper life, just like spending millions on a strip club or something. But
he's focused on social impact.
Yeah, he's focused on social impact, and he gathers a community of people that actually care about what's happening in society. So yeah, I know they're kind of very different examples, and I'm sorry to like most people here who probably don't know either of them, but those two are kind of the leaders that came to my mind.
I love it. I love it. Astro Teller and Lil Dicky. Look them up. One more person. A girl, hopefully. Or I'm going to pick on you.
The person I admire maybe Steve Jobs, because of course he said sometimes life is going to hit you in the head with rubber you don't know what's best. So because he was being fired by his company.
Yeah.
Yes, but later he back and was with the company and make the value of Apple. So I think he was
a dynamic.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Steve Jobs was definitely a dynamic leader. Round of applause for y'all. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So you all shared all amazing type of leaders, from friends to your favorite, movie producers and directors, to innovators, right? And even rappers. Leaders come from all angles of life, right? It doesn't just have to be your mom or dad. Those are two of my favorite leaders, right? It doesn't have to be just your grandma. It could be the people who are affecting culture. It could be the people who are building innovation, right? It could be your closest friend. It could be your favorite videographer, like my buddy Van. Leaders are in living day all around us. And I want to share with you a few of my favorite leaders. Brian Chesky. Brian Chesky is the CEO of Airbnb. Recently, Airbnb got into some hot water. They got into a few issues because someone booked an Airbnb house, and it was a house party house. And they went to this house party house, and lo and behold, during this house party, 2 people died. 2 people died during the house party. So this got into the news all over America and also internationally as well. And what happened was reporters, politicians, they were asking Airbnb to do something about it. They were saying, look, you have a whole bunch of houses that are in inventory on your platform. What are you going to do about issues such as this in which people are dying in the guest houses that they booked because they're turning them into house parties and they're turning them into homes for partying, which, as you all know, isn't the purpose of Airbnb. It doesn't align to their mission. They're very focused on building belonging and bringing people together. So what Brian Chesky does as a leader, and think about this, he's listening to all of this feedback. He's seeing, people misuse his platform that he's built with his friends. So what does he do? He says, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have our leadership team. We're going to have the people building our product. We're going to make sure that we verify all 7 million listings of homes on Airbnb. 7 million. That's a lot of homes. And you can't do that all manually. But Brian Chesky realized that it's so important that they put trust first on the platform so people can continue using Airbnb and feel safe when they book homes. And this isn't a time where people are negatively talking about his product, the brand, and everything that they built for the last few years. But as a leader, sometimes you have to take that stance, not only to preserve the company that you've built, but so you can let your customers know that, look, you value their business, you value their relationship with you, and more importantly, you want to make sure that you're creating a platform that's going to build a better world. That's what dynamic leaders do. Another one of my favorite leaders is Satya Nadella. How many of you have heard of Satya Nadella? Yes? Yeah? I love Satya Nadella. I formerly worked with Microsoft, and one of the main reasons why I joined Microsoft was because of Satya Nadella. Now, when Satya Nadella took the leadership reign at Microsoft, they had just undergone what we consider the Steve Ballmer era. And during the Steve Ballmer era, all Microsoft cared about was their own cloud products. They weren't focused on partnering with other cloud providers like Amazon or Salesforce. They weren't focused on open source. They didn't really even care about open source at all. All they cared about was Microsoft, 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 Microsoft. It was a really selfish position for the product, the company. More importantly, the leader, the former leader, Steve Ballmer, really took a selfish position when it came to leading the company. And a lot of people consider during that time when Steve Ballmer was in charge, some of Microsoft's worst days. The culture was really competitive. It didn't really cultivate community. It didn't cultivate a growth mindset at all. But then Satya Nadella took helm as the CEO. And one of the first things he did was he changed the culture. He said, you know what? I believe the vision of our company is to focus on empowering people to achieve more. That's it. And isn't that the simplest mission statement in the world, right? He crystallized what he believed Microsoft stands for, and that is to empower people to achieve more with Microsoft Word, with PowerPoint, with all of their different cloud services stretching from their business applications to their productivity tools. And he was clear on that. He created clarity around that, which is one of the 7 habits. But more importantly, he instituted this mindset, this growth culture within the company, and it's actually led them now to be considered a $1 trillion company. They're worth more than Apple, they're worth more than Amazon, and Satya Nadella is also getting paid really well as well because he's doing a great job. He's instituting this growth culture because he understands that the future that we're building towards, that he's building towards with Microsoft, it's going to have to be rooted in innovation, and he's going to have to start with the culture of the people. And as a leader, you have to lead first. You have to show the habits, and he definitely shows the habits because he's an avid learner. But more importantly, you have to make sure that people understand why. You have to lead with purpose. And then my last favorite leader, one that I really, really enjoy, and some of you may not have heard of him. His name is Lual Mayen. Now, Lual is an innovator who actually grew up in Uganda. And what's so amazing about this young man is that he grew up in poverty. He was running away from the war-torn area in Uganda to flee to South Sudan. And when he was younger, because he had a passion for creating video games, his mother actually went to a computer store, and for a whole year, she worked enough to save enough for him so she can get him a computer, a $300 computer. It wasn't the most beautiful computer in the world. It wasn't the most high-performing computer in the world, but it was worth something to him because he was so passionate about playing video games. So as soon as he got that computer, the first thing he did was play Grand Theft Auto. And I'm sure you all have played Grand Theft Auto before, right? Because he was so passionate about games, he played games to learn how to build games. Today, he's actually built a game called Salam. And the focus of Salam is really to actually teach people how to not destroy communities. Teach people who live in war-torn countries like a Uganda or South Sudan how not to destroy their communities, how to create peace within their communities. He's using his talent and his skills as a leader to change the world, to create something with meaning and purpose. And he's actually one of the first young men in the world who's thinking differently about how we can use video games, not only to have fun and entertain ourselves, but to teach, to help people create peace. This is what leaders do. Leaders find the best ways to champion a purpose, something that they care about, and they are bold in doing so. Imagine this, a man that grew up in poverty in a war-torn country is now creating games to change the world. He's all over the news now. He's famous, he's a celebrity, but most importantly, he's a celebrity and he's a leader that's rooted in his purpose, who understands why he exists and what he's meant to do in the world. So my next slide is going to focus on an exercise. What I want you all to do is understand this. There are 3 mindsets of dynamic leaders. 3 mindsets. 1, being a giver. 2, being a connector. Creating opportunity for others. Introducing other people to communities such as an Open Up Summit. And lastly, I believe, being a coach. So 3 aspects of being a dynamic leader. You have to be a giver, you have to be a connector, and you have to be a coach. You have to be a giver, you have to be a connector, and you have to be a coach. One of the things that I realized building a company is that if you are not leading to give, if you're not empowering your people, you're failing. As a CEO, you're failing. And here's what I want you all to realize. You all are CEOs of your life. You are CEOs of your career, right? You may not embody the title, but you're leading your life. And when you're leading your life, that means you're leading other people. People in your family, people in your community, people in your church. So you have to adopt this mindset to think about, are you leading your life? Because if you're leading your life, then you're more effectively able to lead others with a giver mentality, a connector mentality, and a coach mentality. So with that said, I have an exercise for you all. So this exercise is actually very simple. On each of your tables, you have some of the habits, right? And I want, your groups to, each of you, tell a story about one of the habits. Tell a story about how you had to, maybe individually, create clarity in your life or with your friends, or how you know someone who did. So each of these adjectives should turn into a story. So if you have the adjective of bold, tell us about a time, now tell this to your partners, tell us about a time you had to be bold. And then I want you all to share stories essentially. So I'll give you all about 5 to 7 minutes to do this, and then we'll reconvene.
然后现在就是写下一个习惯，然后把它就是利用你自己生活周遭的例子，然后给它分享给身边的人。
So, are you community? So, tell me a story about a time you saw someone leading with community.
Actually, in my experience, when hold raising up an activity like for problem solve for better health.
Yeah.
This kind of activity is a kind of
hackathon.
Yeah, and we are going to work as
a team, but not a group of people.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think it is different between a group of people and a team. It's different. So I think a leader has to know this and know what our team are going to do and to push everybody to our purpose.
I love that. I love that. So what about authenticity?
I do so many scientific research, and when we are doing experiments, we have to make sure all the data is correct and is right. Although whether it's like the accuracy of it is low, we still have to show it because it's kind of like the scientific spirit.
So you consider being authentic as a matter of being kind of intentional and safe about how you manage data? I love that. I love that. I love that. What did you all share? What did you share?
I share this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm a UX designer, and sometimes this.
I'm a former UX designer as well.
Oh really? Yeah. And you know, sometimes there's no answer to a design. So actually, sometimes I'll make like 2 versions or 3 versions of to solve a problem, but I don't know which one is the best.
Yeah.
So I will analyze the pros and cons with my team members. Then we can discuss together.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. That's amazing. That's amazing. Great stories. Be ready to share. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so it seems as if you all have shared a lot of stories, a lot of great stories. Okay, everyone. That's it. That's it. We're done. We're done. Time. Okay, so it seems as if you all had a lot of stories to share around the habits. So I want volunteers who have not spoken yet, share a story on the habit that you have on your desk. So who wants to go first? She wants to go, yay! So,
our topic is community, and when I was raised up an activity like problem solve for better health, this kind of hackathon, and we have to work together as a team, not a group, because all of us are going to help our students to go and tackle their goals and their problem that have to be solved. So we think this is something like the community that all of us are going to push them to go to the goal.
Love it. Who else? Anyone else? Someone from this table over here. This has been a very silent table.
All right. So our habit is compassion, and it's gonna be a bit long story. Hopefully, I don't take up too much time.
We have enough.
All right, sure. It's kind of like a negative example. So I'm actually working for a non-profit organization called Change, and I am in charge of arranging some kind of workshops, just like team here. And I was contacting the speaker about his preparation on the workshop. And just some background story here. We actually did arrange a date about a month ago, but he postponed that date, and then it postponed to 2 weeks later. Then when the 2 weeks later date was approaching, I still didn't receive any response from him. So I just hit him up and say, excuse me, have you already prepared? That kind of stuff. And he just kind of shrugged it off. At least for me, the attitude is like that, and I felt my anger came up, and I really lashed out in a big way, and just say that you have already postponed the event for once, and I don't want to see that you postpone again. And so we went into a big fight, and I'm not going to go into details about the fight. Just after a few rounds of conversation, and everyone started to calm down and see all the circumstances, and suddenly I realized that I may be lacking compassion, because for that speaker, it was his first time to prepare for such an event, and first time to prepare as a speaker. And so for him, it's like a lot of work to do. And I didn't really stand on this side and take this into account. I just thought that, I have to really kind of push him to get this done. So that's why we went into a big fight. And I guess the lesson learned here is try to view from the other person's angle first before going to accusing, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I love it. It's hard. It's hard being compassionate. But I think I love your story because it speaks to how even in moments like that, we can learn lessons on how to be more compassionate. And that dynamic leadership, really embodying the habits, it's a daily battle. It's not just a one moment thing. It's something that you have to practice daily. One more person wants to share their story? Here? Here? This table over here has not shared anything. Yeah?
Sorry, I'm nervous. Our group is discussed about adaptability, and our idea is about it's like our group maybe work every day, but sometimes maybe some personal emotion will infect each other, and so we need to change our mental situation to fix it, to make the group to keep its stage together, and to the situation to be better, and also we need to cut. Sorry, I'm so nervous. We need to maybe have another co-worker, and we need to discuss some idea. Maybe some original idea is not matched, and we need to face it, and so it can be shared and adapt each other's. To make the situation
better.
Okay, better. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much. Please, hand clap for everyone that shared a story. So the dynamic leadership model, as I mentioned to you all earlier, I believe this is the leadership model that we all need to embody as leaders in order to thrive in the future of work, when there's constant change happening. The other day, near our hotel that we're staying at in Taipei, I saw a young man. He seemingly looked frail, but he was working on his jump shot, shooting basketball near a basketball court near our hotel. And I was so inspired by this young man because he was doing it with so much enthusiasm. He was smiling. He didn't have the best jump shot. He didn't have the best crossover. He didn't look flashy. There was no one trying to sign his autograph after he was done practicing. He was on the basketball court by himself, focused, just shooting. And we were just astonished because he was so happy, as if he was like playing in front of 1 million people. But what I realized then was the fact that that's what developing a habit looks like. That's what focus and really being focused and driven behind the scenes and making being better a daily habit looks like. That man is a dynamic leader, in my opinion, because he was putting in work when there wasn't a million people looking at him. He was developing the habit of being better at his game, his jump shot, when no one else was looking at him. And it causes me to ask, and it should cause you all to ask as well, if he could do that, and he's not the best in the world, he may not be the greatest basketball player in the world, why not us as leaders? We should be working on developing these habits behind the scenes on a basketball court or on our free time, similar to the way that young man was. Because the way we get better at leading isn't by sitting idle. It's by making sure leadership is a habit. So what I challenge you all to do is think about this. How can you make these 7 habits a habit? How can you lead with purpose? How can you lead with compassion? How can you find opportunities to build and lead with community? Take these habits and think about your day-to-day. What are opportunities for you to apply them in how you're living your life at work and outside of work? And I think if we do that, long-term, in the future of work, we're all going to be amazing leaders. Thank you. So with that said, I want to open up the floor for questions. I travel the world talking about leadership, talking about the future of work, and I know a lot of you work in professional environments and are probably leading your own open source projects. So if you have any questions for me about the future of work or leadership, please feel free to ask. We have about 5 minutes left, and I'm sure we can get 2 to 3 questions in.
I want to ask how to inspire the leadership of your team members, because especially in work, not everybody comes here want to have the motivation to fulfill anything. Somebody just work for money or for other reasons. So but I surely believe that everybody possess leadership in their mind. Just how can we motivate that?
I love that question because I've traveled to a few places, and what I often hear is that places like Japan and the Middle East, people often are going to work and they don't feel motivated. It's almost as if work is just get your job done and get out, which is an awful way to go to work. And for me, I've left in my past jobs that were the best jobs in the world. I was getting paid great money, but I didn't feel inspired. I didn't feel purpose-driven. So I believe that the best way to really inspire people in work is to make sure that they're doing work that's in alignment to something that they're passionate about, right? Because I don't think anyone wants to go to work feeling as if they're a cog in a machine, right? As if you're just another function, right? You often hear leaders and they refer to their employees as resources. I hate that word. It's awful, right? And it's almost as if you consider people as just a function within a machine, and that's not the way to lead. That's not how you inspire people to feel motivated when they come to work. So I think we have to, as leaders, start asking people, right? If you're in a management role, if you're in a leadership role in your job, if you have a team that you're cultivating, you're nurturing, you have to act as a gardener, as my friend Jimmy mentioned when we had dinner. You have to think about how do you ask your people, what do they want to do versus telling them what to do? Because you go to a lot of workplaces now, here's what leaders are doing. We have this goal, let's achieve this goal, and this is how we're going to achieve this goal. I'm going to tell you how to get your job done. But really the best leaders, dynamic leaders, they show direction. And more importantly, they make sure that they're incorporating the values, the passions of their employees, their team, in the direction of where that business goal is going. So I think the best way is that we need to start asking and start making sure that we're involving that employee's meaning, what they're passionate about, into the work as well. That's a great question. Any more questions? Yeah, right here.
So I feel like you're a very energetic person.
Yeah.
So have you ever feel stressed out, or how do you deal with it?
Oh, that's every day. That's every day. So when I'm when I get stressed out, I'm a big believer in meditation. And you know, I'm an energetic person because I've learned how to manage my energy in my life. And I think, you know, energy management is a practice. Look it up. A lot of people aren't familiar with this practice, but meditation is essentially finding opportunities for renewal. So today's been a really long day, but I'm still pretty energetic because throughout my day, I found opportunities just to, you know, absorb my environment, feel a sense of gratitude. So I think the best way to, you know, prevent stress and overload and being burnt out, because in some workplace cultures and in some environments, people get burned out a lot, and it's awful, you know. And one thing I'm really adamant about with my team at Guide is that we cannot be a burnout team. We have to think about sustainability, the long term, right? We're in early stages of building a product in a company. We need to make sure that our health, physically, spiritually, you know, holistically, is being positioned for the long term. And it does start with you as a leader, as a person, finding opportunities to just be silent, like meditate, you know. And meditation doesn't mean you have to close your eyes and say kumbaya. Like, right? That's not necessarily meditation. It could be you playing a video game. It can be you having a great conversation with a friend that's, you know, teaching you something interesting. Like, find those meditative moments in your life, because those are the moments where they give you energy, I believe. So just me, like, just chilling, being silent, sometimes talking to amazing people, that actually gives me a lot of energy. Jimmy?
Just curious, so what do you think about grit? Because it seems like a very essential skill for leadership as well.
I love that. Grit is a habit. I like that. I think, you know, so I've been reading this book by Angela Duckworth about grit. And I believe a lot of grit has to do with tenacity, persistence. I actually agree with a lot of the things that she says. I think one of the reasons why I haven't included that in the 7 habits is due to the fact that grit, I believe, is inherent. And one of the things that I believe really drives grit is leading with purpose, right? When you actually come from a purpose-driven background, you know your purpose, when you've done the deep work in discovering what is it that you're uniquely positioned to do with your skills, your strengths, grit comes naturally, right? So it is a habit, I believe, but I didn't choose it as one of the 7 habits because I wanted to be very intentional about the 7 habits I chose. And for me, I've been going through this process because I'm currently writing a book on this that's going to be released in 2020. I've been going through this process and I'm asking people, you know, tell me who is a leader in your life, you know, why are they your favorite leader? None of them have told me grit. Right? It's not grit. That's not why the leaders in their life are their favorite leaders. It's usually because those leaders are really purpose-driven. They're inclusive. You know, they bring people together. You know, they're really empathetic. No one has said grit. And I think that the reason why that is that grit isn't a habit that people just like notice. It's more so a mindset, right? And people, like, if you have grit, you just know you're going to get things done. You're going to be the best person that you need to be. You're going to achieve your goals. But habits can be displayed. You can see compassion. You can tell if someone is adapting to a different situation and isn't letting it get the best of them. So I believe grit is important, but I feel as if it's a more inherent and mindset-driven thing versus a habit that people can see. Awesome. So we actually want to take a picture, Van, the videographer I work with. We want to take a picture with all of you. And thank you so much for being a part of this workshop and listening. I really appreciate y'all. And follow us on LinkedIn. Follow me on LinkedIn. Awesome. Thank you.